Welcome to What Lies Ahead. I'm your host, Chris Raffini, lead singer of the Long Island band Overthrow. On my podcast, I discuss everything related to the hardcore scene through the eyes of artists, promoters, and record labels. As always, please like or subscribe on all social media platforms. Today, I have John Cuccinello, a longtime fixture of the hardcore scene, from the raw energy of OS101 to his earlier days of Hogan's Heroes. John has been an intricate member in East Coast punk for decades. Now he's channeling all that experience to a brand new interactive kids book for adults called Punk Rock Family, featuring hardcore legends in marker and pencil. It is filled with tales from the road, scene history, and a look at life carved out through a unique perspective in illustration and art. In today's episode, we'll discuss about band origins and what it means to document that journey in his new book that came out. John, thanks so much for coming on. How's it going?
Thank you, Chris. It's nice to meet you, man.
Yeah, pleasure. And I want to, before we start, thank Jay from the TNF podcast for setting this up, which is, a good friend of mine. And I know you were on his show as well. So I want to start off by thanking him for setting us up. And the timing is perfect for you because you just, at the time of this, it's mid-July. This will be out in late August. We're recording in mid-July, late August. This will come out, but your book just released, which I'm psyched to talk about, which is it's pretty cool, and it's definitely, as I mentioned, in my opinion, a very unique way. You have been blending the hardcore scene with illustration. It's really cool. So psyched to talk about that.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah. So let's start go back to the beginning a little bit. I always like to start that because it kind of paints a picture of and it makes sense almost for the book that you have out because it documents some of the things that we're talking about here. But let's start from the beginnings with you, where your first interest with punk and hardcore, going to shows, and how it built from there.
Yeah. So, I grew up with a sister who is 5 years older than me. So as a kid growing up, I got turned on to listening to early Aerosmith and Ted Nugent and bands like that. And then it wasn't until I really got into Nutley High School. That's where I'm originally from, is Nutley, New Jersey. And one of my friends was Mark Ryan, and he turned me on to. I guess it was going into my sophomore year. He turned me on to the Dead Kennedys and Black Flag, and that really was my first introduction into what hardcore even was.
And then from there it grew, right? I'm sure. And it's always like with that, it's interesting. Do you recall at that time, were there other people, you had that friend, but were there other people from your school that were interested in that? Or was it like, no, no, no?
No, the thing about being in North Jersey is you're more connected, obviously, with the city.
Right.
Um, so I remember my first visuals. Like the high school had like this kind of like in school art and craft day where the young students get to go, and there were a lot of people who were silk screening, and there were these images that I kept on kind of going to. One of them was um, the Flipper image, and I didn't even know what Flipper was, or the Black Flag bars. I didn't know what they were.
Mm.
And then there was this one image which was the pill logo. So I guess on an art sense, I always levitated to certain images, and those images kind of pulled me into the punk hardcore scene. And
Right.
then later on, doing my homework, I realized who they were, and I had no idea that it was Johnny Rotten's band at the time because, I was in ninth grade and I didn't know, but I learned.
Mhm, mhm. That's awesome. So from there, did you pick up an instrument? Like when did you decide to pick up bass and or is it just something that band started, you wanted to play and you just kind of learned as you went, or it was something that you were, I don't know, fluent is the right word, or something that you were experimenting with prior?
No, I guess I wanted to learn how to play guitar because, I mean, at an early age, I was into Kiss.
Yeah.
Again, maybe it's the visual aspect of the whole thing, but I wanted to play guitar like Ace Frehley, and I never had the opportunity to really take classes or anything like that. My father, being the old school Italian guy, was more into, hey, let's play baseball, let's do this, which I did. So I secretly started kind of learning it on my own just by listening to my record player. Um, and then when we moved down to Ortley Beach, which is along the Jersey Shore, um, I got connected with a few guys in this band called The Unexpected. They were a three-piece band, and I went in as a rhythm guitar player, but I was absolutely horrible because I really didn't know what I was doing. And you know, only what I could pick up on the record player as far as chords were concerned. And it was the guitar player of that band who said, "You know what? You'd be a better bass player." And that's when they switched me over to bass. And then I started to learn the structures of the notes and the formations and stuff like that. So even till today, I do not know how to read music. It's always been by ear.
By ear. Yeah.
And so really that's how I got started, which was really playing in that band called The Unexpected as a bass player, which led me to starting Hogan's Heroes as and being a bass player.
Right. So unexpected ends. Hogan's Heroes gets going. Sounds like you got it up and running now. Was it unexpected something you knew it was going to kind of come to an end, and then and you had your eye on starting something else? Was it right after, or there was a little kind of pause
Well,
in between?
the Unexpected continued to play, um, but they weren't playing I liked at the time. So I really was turned on by 7 Seconds the Crew record,
Mhm.
um, what DRI was doing back then. And really, that was appealing to me as a skater and a surfer. And I wanted to surround myself with the same people who kind of wanted to do that fast thrash, get up and go style. The Unexpected wasn't that. The Unexpected was a very cool band, but it
Mhm.
wasn't what I wanted to do. So when I went into, I think it was my junior year of high school, is when I started to look and ask around about people who wanted to start a hardcore band.
And that's how it went. Yeah, and you guys. So I could be off with the dates. I don't know. Would you say Hogan's Heroes around 84? Was it give or take 85?
Yeah,
Give or
yeah.
take.
It was
Yeah. So you guys started it up. Were you playing out as Hogan's Heroes out everywhere all over the place, or it was like kind of a slow roll to get going? You know, with Jersey, the city, and around like the area and stuff.
I think the good thing about Ocean County back then was there was a small group, like everywhere else. There was a small group that was building up of friends who were putting on shows. Like my brother-in-law, Matt. Now he wasn't my brother-in-law at the time, but I mean, he was a six. I can't even remember how old he was. Maybe he was even 14 years old, 15 years old. Got Agnostic Front to do a show down here over Firehouse. Um,
Hmm.
my friend Bonnie Pryor got the Battalion of Saints to come and play, Social Distortion to come and play, and um, so that was the core group, and it was getting on those bills as an opening band to get our feet wet. But it was very slow in the beginning. It was because you know what, New York was always the mecca.
Yeah. Yeah.
Back then, it was hard to get into the city to play, and
Mm.
and our influences in Jersey were bands like AOD, Bedlam. There was a band, Bodies in Panic. Um, so they were the bands that were happening at that point that were influencing us, and they were doing gigs in the city, and we were trying to get into the city. And back
Mm.
in the day, that was tough.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Difficult. So you guys, you put a bunch of albums out. The band lasted about, roughly, I guess, I would over a decade, right? Give or take. Give or take. I guess maybe a little under. And you put out a bunch of close to four or five studio albums, I believe it was. So the process back, it's a long time ago. So it's like trying to come back and thinking about it. So for each album, was there for you guys? Did you stop and say, let's write an album, or you guys, as you were playing, were writing songs? And what was that process like? Also back then, from what you recall, is like, would you come in with some music? Would some of the other guys come in with music, and then the lyrics and the stuff would go over it? Like, how would that go back then?
Um, Well, I believe that once, I mean, we were always recording demos, always going in and recording demos. And I mean, we spent a lot of our own money, you know, just going into a studio, recording and listening, and having like we went to this place called Merlin Studios at the time, and
Hmm.
it was always good to get, for us it would be a fifth opinion.
Hmm.
uh, that sounds really good there, but maybe you could slow it down a little bit here. And even though that wasn't a direct influence on us, it was good to hear what we were creating so we could then reanalyze it and figure out what we wanted to do and what we didn't want to do. And nobody really stepped on one another's toes. Like, I was the bass player and I wrote the bass line, and George wrote the guitar. And at that time, in the very beginning, we had Scott on vocals and Matt on drums. So it was just really a matter of being in the garage and saying, okay, we're going to write a tune, and here we go. Boom. And that's what we
Right.
did.
Very organic process, it sounds like, right? Yeah. Yeah. How did you guys go about structuring your album track lists? Now, each album's different. Each album has its own story. But back then, that's when like albums were albums to me. I'm not minimizing albums now, but it's just different with streaming now and singles dropping. It's like when a full album comes out, it's almost like with all the singles, half the album's been out already. But to me, like the album track list is a story. Vinyl, which is still very prevalent today. How did you guys go about structuring songs on an album, like the first track, the last track? Like, did you think it was vinyl in mind um, when you were breaking it up and stuff? You were on some labels. Did they have some say in that? You know?
Yeah. I think that, you know, our Built to Last record, when Built to Last was getting ready to come out, like the song Inner Strength was always a favorite of the band.
Mhm.
So we knew that we wanted that to intro the record. And, the song Built to Last was something that we wanted to follow up with. And then to end the album, which was a real early song, which was Stuck in a Rut. So
Mm.
there was a little structure between everybody going, this is my favorite song. I'd like to see it here. And it really didn't matter. You know what I mean? It kind of mattered, but it didn't matter because everybody wanted their favorite song to be heard. Whether it ended up on the front or the back, I don't think that there was any really
Okay.
contest.
Mhm.
That on the second record, we did have a little bit of a gripe with Nikki at New Red Archives because Skip's buddy had done the front cover for that record, which is very colorful, uh, and they didn't understand why we didn't want to go with something more hardcore looking, kind of like the cover of Built to Last, or
Mm.
like a crazy stage shot. But by the time we had gotten to that record, um, we were all in a little bit of a different place where we were still playing hardcore, but we were being heavily influenced by a lot of reggae stuff, and that was a big movement back then.
Yeah, yeah.
Even with Underdog, there were a lot of bands that were pulling in this reggae influence. The Police were really big back then, and so when it came to that record, literally had to fight to have that as the front cover, because they wanted something a little bit more energetic. Where the back of the record, has photos of the guys live. You could tell it's a hardcore band. Um, but the layout, the track layout, starts off very hardcore, and then when you get to the flip side, it kind of calms down a little bit. And one friend from the city would always say, he would take the train to a show listening to the first side of the record because
Right.
it was getting him pumped. And then coming back, he was listening to the second side, which was really mellowing him out and feeling that kind of groove. And I thought that was cool.
That is really cool. That is really cool. And that's true. It's never thought of that until you said that with listening to that. So when you had your set list as a band at the time, a lot of times what I'm asking, but what I love this quote. I've always was intrigued by bands, how they structure their set list. And back then, you can even with my band in the late 90s, it's the same thing. There was no such thing as Spotify, Apple Music. So you really didn't see stream numbers back then. You probably if someone said that to you, you'd be like, what the hell are you talking about? Kind of thing. You ran on feel, really, of the songs, which people do today as well, but it was definitely different back then because you didn't have Spotify and stuff. So how did you guys go about your set list? Because as each album built, your catalog built of songs, you had to pick and choose between songs. So how did you structure your set list? And were there songs you've never played in your set list? And we can elaborate from there.
I, I know within me, being an observer of going to shows and watching bands play, I would always see what would set the audience off, and and I think when we were arranging our set list, that's how I wanted it. What was
Mm,
going to set the crowd off, and then if we get to a point where maybe we could bring in a slower song like "She's Gone" or "Dread or Alive," just to give everybody a little bit of a break and give everybody a little bit, so we could groove a little bit and then hit them again. That's usually how we would structure it. "Stuck in a Rut" was always kind of a song that we ended our set
yeah.
list. It gave Tony a chance to kind of show off his drum skills, and then we would just, it was like clobbering time for that song.
Yeah.
There was a thought process behind it, and and also too, as sometimes you were only getting 20 minutes to play,
Yeah.
so you had to hit them hard and fast.
Yeah.
And so what are you going to do?
Right.
Do a
You can't
20
go
minute,
with the deep cuts.
yeah,
Yeah.
have to go deep.
Uh, were there, do you recall thinking back songs that you never had the chance to play live with Hogan Secret Heroes?
um really, I really don't think that there's a song that, I mean, by the time we got to the third record, which really was a conglomeration of some studio work that George had done, and then where we were going as a band, which included Daryl, who we called the Doctor, was on guitar. Brian Straley was on drums. Skip was singing. Um, there were songs probably on that I wanted to play, uh,
Mm,
but it was so far late in the game in Hogan's Heroes. It's almost like, and I'm being truthful when I speak. It's almost like the train left the station,
mm.
and it was a little too late in the game to start playing that stuff.
I see what you mean. Yeah. Great album though. It really is. And it's got a blend of different things from hard rock, punk, thrash. It's like it's really cool. Like, where it came about with that one.
Favorite ones was one that actually George did write, and it's called "One in Ten," and I
Mm,
really I love that song.
mhm. That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
So guess we'll move a little to OS101 quick. And I remember in the late 90s when that was it like 97, 98, give or take. I always like throw the dates out. I could be correct me if I'm wrong. But I remember OS 101, the record coming out and stuff. So how did that come about in terms of formation of the band?
So we had done a tour to California as Hogan's Heroes, and we went through the Northwest. We went uh, down through Northern California to Tijuana. It was a fun little tour. Um, and when we had played at Gilman Street, this kid had come up to Skip and I and said, yeah, actually, he wasn't a kid. He was probably in his 30s at the time, as we were. But he had said, where where have you guys been? We've been waiting for you guys to come out here. And again, that's where I reference things never really fell in line with Hogan's Heroes, like where we should have been out there in
Mm,
the 80s. We couldn't get there, no matter how much we tried. We just couldn't get there. It was never lining up. And that conversation that we had with this guy, it really like echoed in my mind. And I remember after that show, we were driving, we had to go to San Francisco the next day. And I was sitting with Skip and I said, Skip, maybe it's time that we kind of laid Hogan's Heroes to rest, kind of out of respect. And since we still have the energy to continue, why don't we start a new band? You know,
Great way on your terms. All you guys all got along. It's just that it's like there, no issues. You saw, like you said, the train was maybe leaving the tracks, or they're leaving the station.
right?
In a way with that, right? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, and so it's like a reality check.
Yeah.
You know, we had good records. They sold well. We headlined some shows. They were good shows, but they were never of that caliber that I always hoped that they would be. And most musicians might be able to relate to that because when I had the very small opportunity to play with Murphy's Law, um,
Right. Hmm.
realized what it was like to watch a place go off from
Hmm.
from the stage point of view.
Yeah.
And literally it gave me chills. And I had the opportunity to play with Todd Youth and be with Jimmy. And also too, that was another realization of, you know, Hogan's Heroes never became that.
Hmm.
And it's everything that we wanted it to become, right? And it was everybody's kind of hopes and wishes, but that's okay. And like I said, on that trip, we discussed about kind of laying Hogan's Heroes to rest and starting a new band. And it's what we did. And it was out of respect too, because we had so many members coming and going out of the band, that it really wasn't the band anymore.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
even on that last tour, Tony wasn't on drums. You know,
Yeah.
George wasn't on guitar. It was just Skip and I and two other guys that are good friends of ours, but you know, it wasn't
Wasn't.
Heroes anymore.
Yeah. So and that happens very rarely. Do you see bands have the same members? Especially if you're going at it for a while. So, but it's cool like how you guys ended on your terms. So like OS101 put a couple of albums out. Remember United Brotherhood of Scenesters, and so what was the you love punk rock, you love hardcore. That's what it's going to be. But you guys had different styles. Were you looking at going down a different route a little bit with this one? Um, is that in mind, or you just wrote and this is what came, and then you went from there with OS101?
Yeah, there was definitely no objective. We weren't being influenced. Where in Hogan's Heroes, we were influenced by so many bands like the Bad Brains and the
Mm,
Cro-Mags and Murphy's Law and 7 Seconds, and here we were just compiling all of these different sounds,
right.
right? That when we went into OS 101, it really wasn't about that anymore. It was about, I had heard a guitar sound that I had wanted for quite some time. And I had moved from bass to guitar. So I had taken the time out to really hone my skills on that. And by that time, we had gotten back in touch with Tony, and we were bringing him in as the drummer. And of course, Skip was still involved. And then Ian, who was playing bass at the end of Hogan's Heroes, was going to continue with us in OS 101. So, no, it was, I wrote the bulk of the songs, but I would put them on I had like a little 4-track recorder.
Yeah.
So I would put my tape in there and I would record these rhythms, and then I would let Skip listen to them, and then Skip would tell me to take this verse out or move this over here, and then he would say, okay, I would re-record it, and then I would give it to the guys and let them do their magic on their end. But
Cool.
there was no um, major influence like a Bad Religion or something like that we wanted to follow. I think as four guys, we had finally reached our pinnacle, and we were going to display what we could do.
Right, and from a more experienced kind of viewpoint from you guys, because you put the work, you put the time in, and you knew. My actually one other question was any of that stuff from OS 101, like any old Hogan's Hero stuff you had maybe lying around that you incorporated in? Do you remember?
Um, I took nothing from. Off. I'm trying to think of the records, but there was nothing that I took off of anything from Hogan's Heroes. Uh,
Mhm.
we had gone in after our departure with Victory. we had gone in and we had went into Big Blue Meanie Studios up in Jersey City.
Jersey, right? Yeah.
We had recorded 5 cover songs: a Murphy's Law song, a Bad Brain song, and AJ from Resurrection uh, put us in the studio to record it, even though it was never released, which I would still like to get out.
Mm.
But that was the only time that we redid a Hogan's Hero song, which was False Nadar. But during OS101, I didn't borrow anything that I was thinking about recording back then with Hogan's into OS. It was all a complete departure.
Cool. Yeah, and so you guys, I remember put that out, and I remember the buzz of it at that timeline when we came. I remember my band, we played with you guys at the Pipeline in Jersey,
Yeah.
once
Yeah.
or something like that. Yeah, that place. Yeah. But when you guys, same thing I want to ask almost here with like I asked with Hogan's Heroes, how you went about structuring your set list. Because now it's like there was an anticipation of it, knowing that, members of other bands and obviously like that. As you guys started playing out, how did you structure your set list? Obviously you played World of Our Own. You had to, I feel like you had to play that one. It's one of the anthems, right? But how did you, and did you know like that song would become that maybe, but how did you go? You went based on, okay, these are because you had the first album, then you came out with the second, but how did you go about structuring set list for OS101? Same way?
Yeah, it was really the same way. It was really listening to what uh, I say kids, and I don't mean it like that, but it was listening to what people were really turned on to, whether it was 315 or Spam in a Can or Whoa
Mm,
Revolve. It was taking the songs that people really wanted to hear, and since they were so pure to us, and we loved playing them, it really didn't matter. We really went off of, and two, we also structured it on the show that we were going to be playing, the
true.
band we were going to be playing with. So OS101 became this band that could maneuver certain songs into the set to fit the occasion that we were playing.
Yeah.
If we were doing something with 24/7 Spies, or we could kind of adapt a little bit, still play our meat and potato songs, but we could also bring in a little bit, maybe like a sixes and sevens, or something a little bit more melodic. They,
Yeah, and that was cool. Like you guys, like I think what you said was, and it led into what I was going to say. I remember there's not what the shows we played with you because we played two completely different shows with you guys. Like in terms of, I think it was like E Town's record release, and then there was another one that was a completely different one, right? But you guys could fit and play different. You guys did that. You played the heavier hardcore, the fast hardcore, the melodic. I don't know if that was by design or just you enjoyed playing it that way, or like, hey, we're just open to play with any show that we
yeah.
have.
Well, the thing is like, yeah, we didn't want to corner ourselves
Mhm.
into being one certain thing. So where we where we wrote and recorded Heat Seekers, we also had, again, Spam in a Can, or Babysitter.
Yeah,
Um, where if we did a show with E Town, we were going to play Heat Seekers and World of Our Own,
yeah, goes. Yeah.
your stuff, because even though there might have been maybe a small following of ours in the crowd, where if we did 315, they would levitate to it. Um, even when we did shows with Fury of Five, we always ended up digging out the harder stuff. It was
Yeah,
just a matter of picking and choosing what we thought was going to be good for the night. And then if we
yeah.
heard somebody yelling out a song, we would just go into it.
Cool. Yeah. And you guys did that. That was great. And then when the next album came out, you were able to kind of adjust that stuff. How do you feel with from the first to the second album in terms of you felt as a band progression wise because you guys were playing a lot? How did you feel like that went in terms of? So I guess there's one part of it, and then the second part of it is the first album comes out. Were you guys writing it? Do you remember as you were going? Or like I said with Soul Hero, did you just stop and kind of like, okay, we got to get a second album going here, and then you just start kind of demoing stuff?
And seriously, we were practicing so much. I mean, we had to rent rehearsal space. We didn't have a house that had a garage or anything, but we were practicing minimum 3 nights a week. And even prior to United Brotherhood of Scenesters being released, there were already songs coming in that ended up being on Pura Vida.
Wow.
But that's just natural progression, you
Yeah.
know. It's Ian as a bass player going, "Hey, listen, I've got this really cool bass line. I want to play it." And then, you're practicing so much and you're so committed to it. And then it's nice to try to see where this new little tune's going to go. So, no, we didn't stop to say, "Okay, we now have to write a record." It was already naturally progressing to happen. So when Victory said, "Hey, when you guys are ready to go in," we were prepared, and we were.
That's great. You don't feel rushed or yeah, because like even there's some bands I've had on, and even like Mark from Shutdown was my first guest here, but I go back a long way with Mark, and he was explaining how when they had to record their first album, they're like, all right, you guys basically they signed in December, let's just say, and then they wanted him in the studio like 3 weeks later. They're like, they wrote in the studio. And so yeah, so you don't have to feel any of that pressure. If there is, should be, but you know what I'm saying? Pressure, like, oh shit, like we have to write like 10 songs here.
Yeah.
So
You know what I really, I'm gonna skip a little bit here. When I think the great difference between recording as Hogan's Heroes and recording as OS101, what I loved about recording as OS101 is since we were so prepared, when Victory sent us into the studio, they blocked us for like 2 weeks,
hmm,
24 hours. And being prepared when we went in, we were able to really utilize that time and to not feel like there was this time restraint that we had. We knew we had a 2 week block and the album had to be completed in that time. But it's a lot different than taking $1,500 and walking into a studio and knowing that within 3 days you've got to come out with a record, which is basically what we did with Built to Last.
yeah.
So and that's where I enjoyed the journey of going from having minimal time to record an album to having 2 weeks, which compared to probably like the Metallicas of the world is nothing, but for guys like us, it's everything.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. And also, like, it just sounds like what you're saying. It's like everything you learned from Hogan's Heroes. It's like me going with OS101. Whenever you had to do it, it's like we've been there, done that, like kind of thing. And it's really nothing could have affected you in a way where you're like, we can't get this done.
we
Yeah.
were we were all on the same page, and that's the amazing thing about, and that's what I love about hardcore and punk bands is here you have a group of guys who are getting together at 15, 16, 17, 18. Not only us, I'm talking about you and and we all have this passion, right? And now we're in our 50s still doing what we loved to do when we were 18. and
Mhm.
and, and that's the great thing about hardcore music and punk music, and that's what I love so much about it, and the creative energy of it all.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Absolutely. So I think next was let's absolutely talk about the interactive book that just came out, and it's pretty awesome. Like, cause because it is unique. It is unique, and it's like I'm like so many different ways to unpack this because it blends history, and then and then you have with present stuff going on. So and I'd be remiss to say, which is really cool, what the plan is. It's getting distributed through RevHQ, but St. Jude's Children's Hospital, right? Like some of the proceeds, which is so amazing that you're doing that, like something like that. So let's start with, like, I guess where the idea came for this. And is it something also where you've always had an idea, but you had these little illustrations of things and ideas of things that you wanted to put in? Like, how did this whole thing come about?
Yeah, I listen. I could bore everyone to death and take you
Not at
down.
all. This is super interesting with this stuff. Yeah.
So ultimately, and I'll try not to like really get too deep, but my father had passed away back in 2021, and my mother soon after um, started to go into the world of dementia.
Mm.
Um, I committed myself to her on her journey.
Uh,
Music and basically the life that I was living every day was changing because I would go to work, go over to the house, make sure she was doing okay. And as I'm going through this, year one, year two, we're now into year three. Thank God she's still with us. Um,
mhm.
but it is getting close. There were times in the early evening uh, where things would get real quiet, and she'd fall asleep, and then when she would wake up, we would have the best conversations because I guess her mind wasn't really being overworked.
Mm.
And since my last name's Cuccinello, she would always say, "Cooch, what are you doing?" And I'm just sitting here, hanging out with you, watching some TV. And so I started to go on to this spiritual journey with her,
Mm.
as well within myself. And I started thinking, because I had so much time to myself being with her, keeping an eye on her, what can I do to carry on what I've been doing through the years? And it just really came at me in bits and pieces. I started to smell magic marker, and my favorite medium to work in is magic marker and color pencil.
Mhm.
And the first realization that I needed to start drawing again was this memory of my mom walking into my sign shop. I was in the sign business for just over 20 years. And when I had downtime, I would draw these characters on my table. And I remember her walking in and she said, "Oh, I love those characters. If I had money, I would put those on t-shirts so you could sell them." Now, my
Mm.
mom was in a completely different spot because, I was running a business, but it was the first time that my mind went back to that memory. And I thought, well, you know what, maybe I could draw these cartoon characters of myself that I've been doing for so long that people seem to like, because the first set of them literally are on the Built to Last record.
Mm.
Where I started. And it just, I went down this rabbit hole of opening up myself to trying to receive what it is I'm supposed to do. And I said, well, I could do these cartoons of myself, but really, I mean, realistically, who the hell is going to buy a cartoon of me? I
Mm.
mean, it doesn't make any sense. And then in over time, it was like, well, what if I introduced people to the people that I met on my punk rock journey? And then I would write that down, punk rock journey. Okay, this is cool. People I met. So it really was a process. It was almost like 3 or 4 months of little things coming in that I would write down. And then, it's like I had this vision of this front cover that became the front cover. Um, I seen the Revelation logo, yellow, black, white. Um, and I thought, okay, how do I introduce people to my punk rock family? How am I going to let them know what this is about? And then I started reflecting on how I I might have met you back in the day.
Mm.
I met Jimmy G back in the day, by simply walking over to them and saying, "Oh my God, I love your band. It's amazing." And that's how you start to build what we call in our community the family, right?
Mhm.
So, and then it came to that point where I was like, I'm going to draw a book of me introducing all my friends in my punk rock family.
That's cool.
And I'm
Yeah.
going to and I'm going to call it volume 1 because, like you, Chris, and everybody else, there are hundreds of people that we could draw. And so I really set out on this. I made a goal. It was back in November. I went out, I bought new markers, I bought paper, and I bought a light table, and I started drawing. And I started drawing. And each character that I started to draw got me more excited and more excited
Mhm.
because I was referencing them on Google, seeing what they look like now versus to what they looked like in my mind back when I,
Mhm. Back then, yeah.
and even when I got to Kevin Seconds, I wanted to draw Kevin as I remember him. But will the younger kids know him as that?
Mhm.
What I did is I drew me in the Kevin Seconds garb with the cutoff shirt and the black under the eyes, and I made him look like how he looks now.
Mhm. That's
So
so cool. It really is. And so it sounds like from the thought, and it's amazing how something, how helping mom, thankfully she's doing well still, that this artistic expression comes back and it led to what you were doing. So it sounds like, so you're, when was it? It was a few years, I guess, in the making, give or take.
yeah,
Um, that it was like, okay, let's started getting it set up to become book and reaching out and getting like RevHQ and got that involved. And or was that towards the tail end? Like, how did that work itself out?
did this like I had said. I started the idea back in November, and I committed myself every weekend from Friday night to Sunday night because my sister comes up on the weekends.
No.
So I get Friday night, Saturday, Sunday to commit to whatever I need to do. And it was the book that I was going to commit myself to. I knew that I wanted it to become a book, but I knew nothing about publishing a book. I, I had read, Ray Capo's Punk to Monk and, Stigma's book and Roger's book, and really in the back of my mind, I thought, okay, I want to offer something that teaches the younger kids how to pay your true respects to people who put in a lot of hard work. A lot of people just think the band gets up on stage, they got together once, they practice. It's not like that. It's years and years and years of hard work. And these people deserve the respect that they're getting now. The Agnostic Fronts and the Vandals and bands like that, they deserve where they are, to be playing in front of a lot of people and selling a lot of merch. So ultimately, and I'm going to read it because this had come at me as I'm drawing this, and I'm trying to think to myself, how how do I convey to people what this is about? So I wrote, so how can you have as many friends as me? Go to a show, stop to say hello, shake a hand, give a hug, and show them love. And that's how you make your very own punk rock family.
Yeah.
And so once that came to me, I was able to kind of connect the dots with it. And the one person that I had on my mind from out of the gate was Ray Capo,
Mhm.
um, because I give him a lot of credit in the beginning when he started to get involved in Krishna and stuff like that. Um, Being in such a popular band, and he made this departure, and kudos to him. I just love the fact that he stuck with his beliefs and he followed it, and even till today. So I do follow him on Instagram, and I like the words that he speaks. And he was the first person coming to mind that I wanted to reach out to say, hey, listen, I've got this really cool idea. Can I show it to you and see what you think? And he reached back out to me. I was able to send him the drawings along the way as I was doing them. And he was actually the one who made the connection with Jordan at Revelation. Now, was I hoping that Revelation might pick it up? Yeah, I was kind of hoping that Jordan would be like, yeah, but he explained to me. He goes, listen, we don't publish books. We publish records. We're a record company. Um, I think that they had done the all ages book back in the 2000s.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Mhm.
But he was really cool in saying, listen, if you publish the book or someone publishes it, we'll be more than happy to distribute it. Because at that time, I had made him like a fake hard copy of what I thought the book was going to look like. And I had mailed it out to him. So he had the visual in front of him. So he was super stoked on it. And he was like, listen, we will absolutely distribute it. So now it was time for me to find, where do you get books printed?
Mm.
That was a whole nother thing. So I
Because
did.
it's like a different world, and that's what I was wondering, asking it. It's like, all right, the book's out, but people like what the work involved behind it. Sorry. So, but yeah, but it's a lot.
Yeah, and I think that's, so, being an artist such as yourself, there's one of two things that happens. When you go to record a record and you're recording it for a record company, you're kind of pawning off part of your royalties. You're
Mm.
you're pointing off some of your musical rights, right? So where I was at with the book was, well, if Revelation picks it up, I want to own the artwork,
Oh,
right? I want the artwork to belong to me, so I can make maybe little posters or whatever I want to do freely. So I was at sixes and sevens with the fact of wanting somebody to pick up the book, and or me having full control of the book. And in the end, it was an investment that I had to make on a credit card.
yeah.
But I bit the bullet, and I mailed out the copies to Revelation, and I'm also, anybody who does punk rock flea markets or has a mom and pop store, they can contact me directly. I will give them a wholesale price so they could make money.
That's nice that you have that in your, you have that with you. So that's great that there's that. You need the distribution, of course, because you can't do everything yourself, but you still got like you're still kind of running it through you in a still, which is amazing.
Yeah, and really, philosophically, it's going back to back in the day, like we all
Mm.
did. It was, record a 7 inch, go, photocopy some covers for the
Yeah.
record, and then you're out at your show and you're selling them. And
Yeah.
it's no difference with this. I mean, I'm going to go to a few shows. I'm going to ask the guys if it's okay if I set it up and sell the book. So what I was doing as a kid is what I'm still doing now, and and I love to do it. And getting on the part of donating money, since I'm going through this journey with, I say, the moms, since I'm going through this journey with the moms, um, also, you know, a, a few people in our community, in our scene, have had problems with cancer,
Yeah.
and a lot of our friends have died from cancer. And we all contribute to helping them try to get better. Some have made it and some have not. And for most people like us, it's hard enough seeing an adult go through MLS or leukemia, cancer. It really tugs at your heartstrings, and you want to do everything to help that person. But let me tell you something, the first time I walked into a children's hospital
Mhm.
changed my life forever.
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
and I think that also helped me go onto this journey. And I made a promise within myself. Now, listen, I'm Catholic. I'm not a devout Catholic. I believe I believe in everybody's religions. I'd like to get a little piece of everybody and what they believe in. And I made a promise to God that if people can see the goodness in this book and understand that there's only good and love behind it, that I would donate money to try to help the kids and their families, because the families are going through horrific moments. Those alone times, when they're there praying that their child is so. To speed it back up, I am donating 12%.
That's
Um,
great.
at the end, like hopefully by at the end of the new year, this first run of 800 books will be sold. And then I started up this company called Art is Life. I'm donating it under Art is Life.
Oh, that's great. That's
You know,
wonderful. And you could tell just from speaking with you, you want to help people. It's just very genuine, and you have that altruistic kind of spirit in you that, you can't really teach. It's just what you're there. And I think it's amazing, especially where you go, with the St. Jude's Children's Hospital. It's just a really nice touch to kind of help with the book. Now, let me ask you, you mentioned something before. It's volume one. Is you it sound you've been working, so you probably have volume two, three, and four all ready to roll. Or so did you, when you put in volume one, was it hard and difficult? Like who you, it's almost like structuring the album track list in a way. It's the same thing. Like you want to do too much of it, but you want to put a nice amount of it. While you were doing it, you were like, okay, I got 100 people, I'm making it up. And then you broke it down that way, or like, how did that work? And when's the plan? And you're probably like, Chris, can I just get through the new year? The thing just came out, but is there a goal in mind for the second one and when you're going to start doing that?
It was very, very hard, because I knew Ray was going to be the first one because he was the first one on my mind. So when I got him done, and the funny thing is I have a large countertop in the kitchen, and as soon as I would get a drawing done, I would lay it on the table, and then I would go on to the next one. But the book was really East Coast favorable because this is where we're from.
Right, of course.
So where I wanted to have Todd Youth in there, where I wanted, um, there are a lot of people, Eddie from Leeway, and so many people that I wanted to include. I thought, you really need to kind of expand out to maybe some people on the West Coast that you met. I wanted to do Colin of GBH, but I thought, okay, well, let's see how this goes with this, this group of characters, and if I have the opportunity and things are going well, I will do another book. So my plan was through this past winter was to draw all of the people that I wanted. My hopes, wishes, and dreams was that this takes off, it starts to sell, and that next winter, this upcoming winter, I would start working on the next group of people.
Got it. Okay.
And there really was a master list. There was a master list of people that I would look at on paper that I wrote down, and I thought, okay, I really want to draw him, but I'm going to hold off to the next one. And when I look through the book, it does stoke me out because I've got Stickman in there, and I've got Freddie from Madball, and I've got Connie, who's a really cool photographer from Asbury. So, and these are all people that I have a lot of respect for. And
Yeah.
I think too, whether I met somebody for 5 minutes or I've known them for 5 years, if I'm extending my hand to them and they're reciprocating them that back, that's what this book is all about. I've now created a new friendship, just like with you.
Yeah.
Um, even though we met some years back, you know, um, um, it's just part of the process of yeah, there was a list. You know what my hope is with this whole thing is that I could do 4 or 5 of these and
Mhm.
one master book at the end.
That'd be cool. Yeah, yeah.
Without the blurbs on them, like "Hi Johnny" and stuff like that, just the visuals as they were done in one master book. That's what I'm really hoping for. And guys like us at our age get it, but I would really like the younger kids to latch
Mhm.
to it because they were all influenced by the people in the book.
Sure.
They
Absolutely. Absolutely. And they run the scene now, of course. And I always feel like, we're still doing it, but Andy West says this, and I agree from Kill Your Idols, like hardcore is a young man, it is music, even though look like my band I'm 47, we have a new album coming out, but like, because like you said, music brings you back, but it is. And I absolutely think it has and will what you're doing right now. And what's cool is you've always, even back with Hogan's Heroes, you always have a plan and a goal in mind. And it's just cool hearing it too. It's almost like I'm going to start up again in November. It's almost like, all right, we got to start up writing a new album. It's the same thing, and probably so therapeutic for you at the same time. I mean, it's just got to be, and was at the time of when you're helping mom out.
Right, right. So I've got to I've got to actually go plug this in because I'm losing some power here.
Mhm.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Yeah. So, you know, I think for me, with the journey that I've been on for myself, and learning to, one thing that I learned to do, and it's hard as an Italian, is to learn how to meditate
Mhm.
and and to give yourself a little bit of time to reflect on things. And so when I started to do that, now this all started because a few years back I had gotten Bell's palsy, and a lot of people, don't know what Bell's palsy is. But it's basically where the one side of the face just completely sags down, and
It paralyzes.
when I went through
Yeah.
that, yeah, yeah, and I mean, it's just like, it's pretty horrific stuff. And it took like a year for me to get basically all my muscle structure on the left side of my face back. So I think that was the beginning of a new chapter in my life, to calm down, focus, breathe, meditate. And it opened me up spiritually to listen to what was being given to me, what I've been ignoring my whole life. So when I started to open myself up to wanting to do something to continue the punk hardcore legacy on another realm, something that really had never been done. So to me, that was a gift. It was a gift sent to me to create this book of a bond of friendships that I've had for some 40 years.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. And, everybody, it's great and should check it out if they haven't, because, I think you're saying January. I don't think these books are going to be around in January. So I think people should be picking them up pretty soon, because I think that's the case, because it's really, really cool. And hearing your story with it makes you even want to, if you haven't seen it or get it once, makes you
Yeah.
want to get it even more.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So I guess we'll end off here now with a bunch of questions, and really first thing that comes to mind. If you want to elaborate, go ahead. Honestly, some of them you
Oh,
might have to, because especially with the first question, you're going to be like, I don't know. It depends on the mood. So, performing or writing the book?
at this
Mhm.
point, where I'm at right now, writing the book.
Mm.
And only because it really is blending the musical end,
True.
you know, into what I've done my whole life, because I've been an artist my whole life. I was blessed to make a living making art. So right now my high is this book and the excitement of drawing everybody else that I want to draw.
Yeah, that's great. It sounds like you have a 5-year plan. Let's call it.
I do. I do.
Like,
Yeah.
Well, these questions there's no semblance of order. You're going to see, be like, how the hell did you go from the last question to this one? But your favorite, you kind of maybe mentioned it, but I'll bring it up again to we'll solidify it here with an exclamation point. Favorite Hogan's Hero record?
Well, Built to Last would be my
Mhm.
favorite, my favorite
Mhm.
record. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I would think that's a great one. A song you wrote that you're most proud of?
Uh, you know, musically, it would it wouldn't include lyrics. It was Stingray's Revenge, which was on the United Brotherhood of Scenesters, which was the last track.
Okay.
But with vocals, I love what Skip did with like Spam in a Can and Babysitter, um, Pizza Core. Those are really fun songs for me, and I love what he did with them. But musically, it was definitely Stingray's Revenge, because it was just this hard guitar. It was like modern day surf music without the twang.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah. See what you, yep, yep.
yeah.
So this, not as a person, but your favorite character, even though they're people, they're not characters, but I'm going to call them characters for the book here, that you drew in the book, and that you came up with, that you were most proud of and happy about, that's in this book that you descripted in this in the
Yeah,
notes?
I think my favorite character that I love to look at the most is Danny Diablo.
Oh, this is awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. He's the
yeah,
best.
like
Oh, yeah. So,
you know why? Because he reinvents himself all the time, and I remember like the first time I seen him just with this his red afro and his yellow like glasses on, and I just thought, man, like that's where I want to go with this. Like when I was drawing the characters, I said, that's the part of Danny I want to capture. And he's one of my favorite ones that I go to. He's my go-to in the book.
that's awesome. That's a good one too.
Yeah.
Favorite tour you've been on? And the tour, by the way, doesn't need to be a 3-week thing. It could be a weekend you did
Yeah, yeah.
like that.
I had a lot of fun when we would go out with Agent Orange.
Mm.
Um, and the reason why is because musically, you had Dusty on drums, Mike on guitar. You have these guys who are of another level as a musician. And not only, when we were performing, we were giving it our A game. I always watched them play at night just to learn a little bit and watch how they did things. So I think the tours with Agent Orange were really fun.
Cool. Do you still have the first punk record you ever purchased?
Yes.
Cool. That's great. Which one's
Yeah.
that?
Never mind the Bollocks.
Nice. Mm.
Yeah.
You play it ever or no? It's more just you keep that thing.
I have a really bad. I think one of my goals is to buy a new record player.
Yeah,
If
mine's awful too. I need a new one.
Yeah, like I've gone to friends' houses and they have these beautiful stereos, and like high ultraphonic whatever they are, and it sounds like there's an orchestra in your house, and I
Mhm.
think, you know, um, in my 58th year of life, I think I deserve to have a really good stereo so I
You're good.
can listen
You're
to
good.
those records. Yeah,
Cool.
I've got a really crappy record player, so
Yeah, I do too. I feel like it's almost an axe that's going on the record and gonna
yeah.
cut it off. I almost
Yeah.
don't even want to put it on, you know?
Yeah, yeah. It's sacrilegious to even think about putting the needle on the wax that I've got here.
Right. Top 3 most influential records.
In hardcore music,
You can in general. I mean, I know you mentioned Kiss, you talked about some other, but it could be anything for you.
I'm a really top three records. Um,
It doesn't have to be in order. I
yeah,
know.
I'm gonna say that influenced me as a musician would have been 7 Seconds, The Crew for sure. Um, Battalion of Saints, Second Coming, because Chris is a guitar player and I did get to meet him. Was just an amazing event watching him live play. Um, and then the third one, I was always into, and I know this might be a little abstract, besides anything that the Bad Brains has ever done. Let's put it that way. I mean, the Bad Brains are just epic, so their influence is great and almighty. I really enjoyed the Replacements, and then what Tommy Stinson did after the Replacements in his bands.
Okay. Mhm.
So I can't put my finger on one of those records, but it would kind of be like that.
Something there. Okay. Couple more. What did you listen to last?
The Super Suckers.
Ah, okay. Last but not least, vinyl or digital?
Well, right now, all right. So I'm gonna have to say digital right now because I don't have a good record player.
Mhm.
But being a musician that learned to play by ear, it wasn't until things went digital that I even realized what some of the musicians were playing.
True. You're
Because
right.
I'm listening to records growing up on an old, record player that really maybe you're hearing more of the guitar or more of the vocals. And then when CDs came out and you realized how intricate and some of the layering that's going on, analog.
Mhm.
Or
Yeah.
digital is really, I mean, just hearing to finally hear all those things, all those little nuances really just took it to another level and
Yeah.
helped me as a guitar player.
Ah, cool. Yeah, it's cool. It's a cool way to put it. Yeah, for
Right.
sure.
Yeah.
John, thanks so much. This was a great conversation. Great hearing the history, but even what the plan is moving forward with everything, with the book, which is amazing. And I feel like you're going to be unlimited. When this comes out, this is late August, there's going to probably be very few left. So people should jump on buying this as soon as possible. But
Uh,
anything you want to end with before I sign us off?
yeah, I just, I want to, thank you for taking the time out to talk with me. I think it's awesome. And this, it's little things like this. And I shouldn't say little because it sounds demeaning, but it's situations like this that help us continue to grow our community, to keep the younger generations educated, and to see that, what you're doing at 18 or in your 20s or in your 30s, you will still be doing
Mhm.
at 40, 50, and probably 60 and on. So I just, I want everybody to really take the time to enjoy their life, enjoy music, enjoy art. There's a lot of crap going on out there. Just stay focused and only do what you could do. Be yourself.
Great. Agreed. It's awesome, man. John, thank you so much. I'm going to end this off here. Hang tight, and then we'll wrap it up when I'm
All
done.
right, Chris.
Thank you for listening to the What Lies Ahead podcast, which is available on all streaming platforms. Go save the What Lies Ahead podcast playlist on Spotify that features all bands that were on the show. For more information on future episodes, you can go to my Instagram account and follow at What Lies Ahead _podcast, and on Facebook by searching What Lies Ahead podcast. See you on the next episode.